Kena Bridge of Spirits is a solid Metroidvania Souls-like with a masterful combination of iconic features from multiple genres wrapped in a unique package of story, characters, and world building. If you're short on time right now, a summary of the game is coming right up. Hey everyone, Odie from Geek Talk here, bringing you a review of Kena Bridge of Spirits. So here's the gist of it. This is the developer's first game. However, even if it wasn't, I'd still call it a one-of-a-kind, amazing experience from start to finish. There are only a few hiccups along the way, and nothing truly takes away from the constant enjoyment that you feel at every step. Kena Bridge of Spirits is a fast-paced Souls-like game where the combat brings a mix of special abilities. Focusing on patience, timing, and swift execution is the intended gameplay style. I could easily also compare it with gameplay from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order or Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. The combat's aesthetics are beautiful, colorful, and abilities make use of the rot as well. Those are the little black furball things that accompany Kena. The story is simple but charming. It is very effective for what the game is and what it wants to do. It's accessible for all ages. Kena herself has her own reasons for being in this world and helping spirits, but the focus is mostly on the stories of the villagers you help move on to the next life. The world is beautiful, enticing, and a pleasure to explore. The characters are basic but fit perfectly with the narrative. The game could be described as all the Pixar movies, the game. And I do mean that in all the right, joyful, and beautiful ways. Alright, that's about the game summarized. If you're sticking around for the entire review, rest easy, knowing that there will be no spoilers. Let's press on with some bits about the story. Kena Bridge of Spirits start you off right into the action. There aren't any real details about who you are or what you're doing. Basically, you don't know anything except that you're a spirit guide looking to help lost souls find their way into oblivion. The story is a mix of multiple cryptic mysteries that slowly unfold into a greater overarching web of events. There's a touch of childlike joy and magic thanks to the game having a narrative akin to a Pixar movie. I've actually thought to myself 2 or 3 times that I was playing all the Pixar movies, the game. Please let me underline that this is a very good thing. A lot of games nowadays are dark, gritty, mature. Kena Bridge of Spirits isn't, and doesn't try to be. The story is one fit for all ages. It is simple, to the point, but slow in its plot reveals. It leaves room for interpretation through scattered clues and narrative bits. It's pretty obvious that all the characters you meet, including Kena, know more about this world than you do as the player. To me, the game was more about you as a player finding details about this world and the reason Kena is even in the location where the game takes place. To take all of those scattered clues and story bits and put them together into a story that makes sense for both Kena as a character as well as the surrounding world. Overall, the plot was less about Kena's story, although you do get a reason for why she's doing all of this. The story is basically your journey as a player into uncovering and solving the mystery of the Sacred Mountain's spiritual corruption. Kena is the vessel through which you experience all of it. Still, I think the game missed 3 important chances to develop Kena's past more through flashbacks. I won't spoil when or how, but they involve boss fights. After those boss fights, more insight into Kena's past would have fit wonderfully, I think. That being said though, it really doesn't take away anything from the overall narrative. Everything that happens and Kena's objectives make sense. In the end, that's what really matters. Even Kena being able to pick up new abilities basically instantly as you learn new skills is slightly touched upon. The game doesn't want to feed you all pieces of information with a spoon from the start, and that's appreciated. There are a few games nowadays that actually respect your intellect as a player. Fewer still, that even try to make you think on your own. In Kena Bridge of Spirits, you're left to actually think for yourself. A lot of plot points are touchy-feely in a wholesome way. The underlying reason for the whole story that has a nice philosophical meaning to it. There's a life lesson that could resonate with any age or group. The story fits very well with what the game wants to be. What did annoy me though is that it's obvious that one character in particular clearly knows more than he's letting on at all times, and Kenna kind of just acts as though she doesn't get it, something along that anyway. However, in retrospect, perhaps that character was just letting Kenna and you as a player learn the information and process it on your own. It was perhaps the developers' way of letting you get more connected with the events as they unfold and thus help you enjoy the story even more. Even the ending, which is very well written and fulfilling, less room for you to assume what happens afterwards. It's not a cliffhanger though, not in the slightest. All in all, the story is a great package. Alright, let's move on to the gameplay. First things first, your weapons are very important for exploration as the game is Metroidvanian in nature. Basically, regions, areas, collectibles, they are all utility locked. Personally, I do not like Metroidvanian style games. I don't get why you'd be like, hey player, see that cool stuff over there? Awesome. You can't reach any of it. I prefer a narrative path which unfolds organically and is completely accessible to you. Think Uncharted or an open world game that does not even let you reach areas which you cannot fully explore. Thing is, the Metrovanian design almost didn't bother me at all in Kena Bridge of Spirits. That's because the game's just damn good. Besides, the areas really interconnect very nicely in a way which definitely makes sense. Exploration is a pleasure, with jumping mixed in with other means of getting up or down in the environment. Especially interesting is this mechanic where you get to blow up certain stones and then they levitate, and then you can grab on to sort of floating flowers and vegetation. And yeah, just solid exploration overall. Plus, the combat is spot on. The actual combat revolves around blocking, dodging, and parrying. After evading, you use light or heavy attacks mixed in with special attacks. There are two additional weapons which you pick up along the game and they help vary your combos. You're already watching me use this in the footage that you're watching because this is a New Game Plus playthrough where I'm just showing you what combat becomes as the game progresses. Enemy variety is also spot on, not too few and not too many types. Each enemy type has a different way in which they can be defeated easier. Attacking weak spots on bigger enemies or defeating some smaller enemies also drops courage. The rot, those cute black potato things, then use this courage that you collect. It lets you do special flashy attacks that incorporate them very nicely. I have absolutely no idea how the developers nailed it this nicely on their first try, and to top it all off, the boss fights. Now, the boss fights are absolutely superb and jaw dropping. The animations, the boss phases, the boss arenas, the uniqueness of each boss fight when compared to another. Right now, you're watching a more mini boss, let's call it I would call that the mini boss fight because I don't want to spoil the 4 big boss fights, or rather 5 big boss fights that the game has, but just look at what's on your screen right now and imagine it way better. It's really impressive, honestly. Each moveset of the bosses feels like it belongs to that character. The very way in which the bosses move, act, and attack reflect their personality and build upon their background and characteristics. The only missing thing was a finisher animation, but there's a nice slow down, slow motion effect as you land the final blow at least. At times, combat can feel cheap, only because of the camera angles, but very rarely. Sometimes I would do a special attack that went nowhere, because Kenna was facing the opposite way. It might have been my own fault though for not using the lock-on function. As for other tidbits connected to the gameplay, there are many collectibles to pick up, some of which require a small degree of puzzle solving. The most complex one took me around 15 to 20 minutes to figure out, but I was really just missing an obvious clue. Gameplay felt intuitive and rewarding. It provided a challenging experience while still keeping both combat and exploration in the cartoony art overtone of the whole game. I encourage you to play on Expert Spirit Guide or even the hardest difficulty, as those will motivate you to use the game's systems to their full extent and thus enjoy the game even more. And with that said, let's talk about the characters a bit. Truth be told, the characters are one dimensional, but they fit the story and the world perfectly. That's the only thing that counts in the end for me. Each spirit you must help is nothing really special, but their motives and reasonings are very relatable and down to earth. You understand why they did what they did and what led to their deaths. You understand why they need your assistance, a spirit guide to pass on and be able to rest. The voice acting is easily AAA quality. It sounds like it was snatched right out of a top tier animated movie from Disney or Pixar. Lip syncing is great, each actor portrays, or rather voices, their character just right, and they each have a special charm to them. Kenna herself isn't fleshed out, but you know exactly enough about her to enjoy playing as her. She's confident, skilled, experienced, and exudes a warm and calming presence. To me, this reinforced the idea that you're supposed to see Kenna as your means of experiencing the game. It's in some way her story, and it makes sense when you find out how, but more so your own story through her character. And in many ways, you're also observing Kenna's journey and understanding more about her, the same way you're understanding more about the overall narrative in general. The Rot are also interesting, presenting their personalities and bringing childlike joy through nonverbal actions alone. Overall, perfect characters for the story, and each develop as the story goes on. Perhaps discovering more about the Rot is the most interesting thing about the whole game. There's no need for cloak and dagger intrigue here, and the characters are believable and suit the narrative. Speaking of, let's discuss the world building. The world is stunning. From start to finish, I was continuously amazed about the beauty and character of the environment. It is simply great and varied: dense forests, high mountains, a hilly grassland, a spectacular cavern system. Everything intertwined with magical and otherworldly elements, especially in the later half of the game. There's also a soundtrack for each area you're going to explore, adding to that feeling of new and unique that each zone brings. Narratively, you slowly discover what happened to the village and how it all integrates with the wider sacred mountain that Kenna was searching for. It's a world that functions on balance: life, death, and rebirth. It's mystical, magical, and wonderful. Most aspects about the world remain undisclosed by the narrative, but you can make educated assumptions about the world based on the plot. You're not given many details, just enough to make the story plausible and logical. And you know what? It's enough. It's precisely what was needed. Not every game needs a lore deep enough to rival that of Lord of the Rings. The game knows exactly what it is and what it's trying to achieve, and presents that world accordingly, both narratively and artistically, which makes it unique. And let's talk about that. It's really hard to pull off a unique game anymore. Realistically, everything's been done already. The trick is knowing how to combine what already exists in a new way and add your own notes of originality on top. Ideally, you can even use your own originality as the foundation, and that's exactly what Kena Bridge of Spirits does. On paper, it's just another Metroidvania game with Souls like combat. However, the way in which it executes everything and presents it as a final package makes it worth playing. The combat, how the narrative drives you forward, how the characters fit in with the world and the story, the splendid soundtrack, the voice acting, all of this is what really makes Kena worth playing. What looks like just a children's game at first glance actually has depth and skill requirements if you're willing to give it a chance, and I strongly believe it will captivate you. It's a game for all ages, with a story and message fit for everyone. It also gives you an old school type of game feeling. It reminds me of a time when originality and solid worlds were mixed with gameplay that motivated players into giving their best in each fight. Alright, but with all that being said, will you enjoy playing Kena? Let's talk about that. Well, like any game, Kena Bridge of Spirits won't please everyone. Perhaps the art style is going to be the first deterrent. If you're really into hyper realistic games, it won't be your cup of tea. However, if that would be your only reason to avoid playing it, I would really urge you to reconsider. For example, do you like Metroidvania style games? Souls like, fast paced combat with an emphasis on skill and fast reactions? Where every single blow you take could be the last one? Are you looking for unique and magical environments that suck you into the game world? Would you like all of that wrapped in heartwarming story that has a hidden deeper meaning? Are you a fan of the Zelda series? Then I would say Kena is for you. I know that I for one was very glad to have played the game. Alright, that's about it for this review. Thanks for watching. If you feel so inclined, drop the video a like, it helps a lot, and subscribe to the channel to get even more reviews in the future. Also, this channel started as a podcast and still is a podcast for all things geek, video games, anime, comic books, TV series, and more. Check it out if you're interested. We don't post extremely regularly right now, but who knows what the future will bring. Until next time, Odie out.